This is the Results Basic Training class, and today we're going to cover things like product navigation and the data management centers throughout the product, and then we'll discuss some modules in more detail. For example, we'll start with contacts in the contact screen, we'll talk about activities in the calendar, and we'll also discuss sales opportunities, and then we'll walk through creating a quote, transferring that quote into a sales order, and then also into an invoice. Let's begin with product navigation. Each tab in the main menu of results represents a different module and the functions that you'd find within that module. So here on the Contacts tab, this represents the Contacts module. I can look for different contact records here, I can pull different contact reports, and then also import or export contact records from that tab. Likewise, we have the Calendar and Activities module, which represents things for your calendar and activities, things like the various calendar views, managing your activities, adding activities, and then reports. Sales and Marketing represents sales opportunities, quotes, sales orders, and product and pricing. And then we have Services and Projects, which would be service orders and then projects and contracts. And then Time and Expense and Finances, which represents a lot of the different modules, including invoices and payments. Each of the modules has what we call a data management center, or you'll hear me refer to that today as a DMC. And the DMCs, or the data management centers, are where you're going to be working with existing records and searching for those records, organizing them, and reporting on those records. So each of the DMCs can be accessed through the Manage icon for each module. So for example, here's the Products and Pricing module, and when I click this Manage icon, I would open up the Products and Pricing DMC, or this would open up the Payments DMC, the Sales Orders DMC. Here would be the Activities DMC, and also the Contacts DMC. When I click the Manage button in the Contact group here, I'll open up the Contacts DMC. And I'm going to discuss this DMC in detail, and then I'll point out some of the differences as we go through each module in the product today. So here in my Contacts DMC, this is a listing of all my current contact records in the sample database that I'm using today. You'll see I have 34 records or 34 contacts in the database. Each of the columns here can be searched on. So in the cell right underneath the column name, I can search just by typing within that cell. So for example, if I'm going to search by first name, I can start with just typing and it's going to perform a dynamic search here. As I type more letters, you'll see the contacts are narrowed down to fit the criteria that I'm typing in here. Here are my two contacts that start with ST. So that would work on each of the columns going from left to right. You can perform searches that way, which is very quick and easy. We also have a filtering button on each of the column searches. So here you can search or a number of different ways. Based on what you type into that cell, you can search for greater than or equal to, starts with, contains, ends, does not contain, does not match. There's a number of different options there, but that's another way that you can search. We also have on each DMC a standard search and an advanced search tab. So when I click this standard search, the standard search screen becomes available to you. You'll see a lot of the same fields that you initially saw in the column headings that you can search on this way, but this way you can search on more than one field at once. But there's also some different ways to search on the standard search tab as well. For example, here you can search by group, which we will discuss later, but that's a way you can further categorize your contacts. You could also search on products ordered, or maybe you want to use the full address field here to search on any portion of the contact's address. The other thing I'd like to point out on the Contacts DMC, we have a phonetic search option. So in the phonetic search, it's going to filter out records that sound like whatever you're typing in. The phonetic search is going to work on the fields of first name, last name, and company. So for example, when I have phonetic search checked and I type in Mackenzie and I'm spelling that McKenzi, I click apply, you'll notice I get two different records, both with the last name Mackenzie, but neither of which is exactly how I spelled it. So it's brought up two records that sound like I've typed in. So that becomes really helpful when you want to search for something you're not sure how it's spelled, or maybe somebody entered it incorrectly. Again, and that works on the first name, last name, and also the company fields if you have phonetic search checked. The advanced search tab allows you to search on name searches. That's something we discuss more in the advanced training class. But name searches allow you to create a search and then save those things that you're often reporting on. You can create a search and give it a name, and you can report on any field within results. So again, we discuss these more in detail in the advanced class of how to create them, etc. But just to point out that they are there for use. Back to the contacts DMC. Once you've performed your search, you can sort this DMC or the information in the DMC in any way you'd like. Any of the columns can be rearranged. Here I can drag and drop the first name in front of the last name, and that way it reads first name, last name. You can sort the column in ascending or descending order by simply single clicking the column heading here for ascending order, or if I double click this would sort my contacts in descending order by first name. You can also group by any of these columns. So for example, if you wanted to group your contacts by assigned to, you'd simply drag and then drop the column heading into this blue area here, and you'll notice it groups various contacts into the assigned to. So here admin has 5 records or 5 contacts assigned to them. Dimitri has 9 contacts, Frank has 3, and then you can expand or contract these groups as necessary. And you can do that with multiple column headings as well. So now that they're in assigned to, maybe you want to sort by state as well. So if I scroll here to the right, I can drag and drop that underneath of assigned to, and then I can see how many contacts Dimitri has in Washington DC versus California versus Florida. A couple of other things to point out: you can add records directly from here. So if I click the add button here, I would be adding a contact since we're in the contacts DMC, which you could also do by clicking the add icon up here as well. You can open up any of these records by clicking on the row, or you can select to open it here, and there's various views of that. You can delete records, refresh, and when I click the export button, I can choose to export this information displayed in my DMC into either Excel or a PDF. We're going to leave the DMC and we'll go ahead and open up a contact record and take a deeper look at the contact record. Today we're going to be looking at Stephen Anderson's record, so I've just double clicked on that record to open it. And here's Stephen Anderson's contact record. So the top portion of this screen I think is pretty straightforward. We've got places to store information like the person's name, the job title, the company, phone numbers, addresses, and email addresses. This icon here is one of the Outlook integration options that we have. So when I select this icon, it would open up my Outlook address book, and it would export any information that I have stored on my contact record in result into Outlook. So this way I could access this record offline if I needed to, and when I hit save and close, then it would save to my Outlook address book. This icon here is one of the ways that you can email Stephen Anderson or your open contact in results. So when I select this icon, an email form becomes available. It's pre-addressed to my contact, and then I would just need to fill out the subject, the body, and then add any attachments if necessary. These options here are options that allow you to decide how you're going to save copies of this email within results, and then also track a history of sending this email. If you prefer to work within Outlook, you can always click the Open in Outlook button, which would open your Outlook email and also have it pre-addressed to Stephen Anderson. This icon here is what we call our Keep in Touch feature. And this is one of our newer features that allows you to automatically send an email, in this case again to Stephen Anderson, but it would send a copy of all of the fields and the information represented here on the screen, and it would basically be asking your contact if the information was correct. If it was correct, they can leave it as is. If it's not correct, the contact would be able to edit the email form and send it back to you, and then you can use Results Quick Add, which we'll talk about later in the class, to add it back to results. And once it's added back, let's say Stephen Anderson in this case changed his mobile phone number. As soon as it's added back into results, the contact record would auto-correct itself, and so that way you're always having the most up-to-date information on your clients and vendors and other contacts within your system. This icon here would also open up a browser, but it would open up directly to whichever address you have entered into the website field. One of the things you'll need to do on each contact is select a contact type. And here we see that this contact type has already been selected and they've identified it as a client's active regular account. When I select the drop-down menu, you'll see the various contact types that are available. Contact types are a way to further categorize your contacts. So here you'll see that this company is tracking vendors, partners, prospects, leads, employees, and then a couple different types of clients as well. Your system administrator or whoever has access to your lookup tables will have the ability to change any of the values that appear here. So here's another example of a drop-down that you could customize as well. Here we have the source field, and this company has entered things like Chamber of Commerce, marketing list, referrals, trade shows, websites. So these are their different types of sources. But based on what your company would like to track, you can customize the values here as well. The bottom portion of the screen has 18 tabs in this profile view of the contact record, and these 18 tabs serve two purposes. They're either going to be highlighting a module and showing the records within that module, or they're going to be collecting additional information on the contact. So here we have the User Fields tab, and this tab collects additional information. This tab is unique in that all of the labels for the fields in this tab can be customized. So again, I'm referring to customized as something that we would go over and talk about in the advanced training class. But just keep in mind that many of these labels that you see here can be changed to track things that might be unique to your industry. So for this company's active regular accounts, they've decided to track things like department, assistant, reports to an industry. Since these labels are based on contact type, you'll see those change as you change the contact type. So you can track a number of different things. If you wanted to track something different for your vendors, you could change the labels here as well. Another tab that you'll see these user fields is on the additional info tab. So on the additional info tab, you'll see 4 fields here in the user defined events, and you'll notice that when I change this from a client active regular account to employee full-time, the labels here will also change. And now you'll notice when I switch back to active regular account, it goes back to just events 1 through 4. So no custom labels have been set up for those fields. So we'll go ahead and save that record. On the additional info tab, we're also tracking information on the left-hand side here, things like the assigned to, the sales rep, and even the territory for this account. The Activities tab is going to highlight all of the activity records for Steven Anderson. And so here you'll see a number of different activities. This is a pretty busy account. I can scroll down and we're just seeing basically a brief overview of the activities here. You can sort by any one of these fields, so if you wanted to see these activities in chronological order of when they started, I can click the start date and we can see that this has been an active account since 2009. And then I can click that one more time and see all of my current activities that I have scheduled. So again, this is just a summary view of all the activities or appointments that I have scheduled with this account. When you do see an activity that you'd like to see more information on, you can double click on that record and it will open up the activity record for that particular one. So here is an activity that we have for Steven Anderson, and then on the left hand side, these are all my other activities for Steven Anderson that I saw previously, and I can just use the up or down arrow to scroll throughout the various activities I have set up with this account. So I'll go ahead and close out of this and jump back to the contact records. Another thing to point out on the Activities tab, if you wanted to add an activity for Steven Anderson, you can do so by just clicking the Add button right here. The same functionality as far as highlighting the records, double-clicking them to see more information about them, or adding the records for that module is available on a lot of these other tabs you'll see here. So for example, when I click Services, this displays my service orders for Steven Anderson. We only have one here, but I can click Add to add a new service order. I can click this to see more details about the service order. Likewise, we have quotes, also sales opportunities for this account, various projects, products specific to this account, any expenses that are associated with the account, and then also invoices. And so if you've purchased our QuickBooks integration module, any of the invoices you see here would be invoices that were either created in Results, or you would be able to see the invoices that were created from QuickBooks. So from this view, again, to view more information about this particular invoice, I can click this and open up the invoice record, and that would show me the invoice screen, which we'll see later in class. But that invoice would list invoice details or line items for that invoice. You can also see a cumulative view of all the invoice details, as we call them, or line items as you might refer to them as, listed here on the Invoice Detail tab. So this tab provides a quick summary of the products that customers ordered, the quantity, what date they ordered them, how many, and the price. The Finances tab collects additional information on finances, things like the credit terms and credit limits, the bill to and ship to addresses if those are different. You'll see information pulled from this tab, especially like the credit terms, when you are creating quotes and invoices as well. The Associate tab allows you to track information on additional contacts within this account. So in this example of Sidco Construction, Stephen Anderson is the Vice President, and he's our primary contact for Sidco Construction. But you'll notice here there are other people that we interact with that might have different phone numbers, physical addresses, email addresses that we'd want to track in Results. So here we'll see there's a receptionist, an operations manager, a partner, and then another address for this company. If you wanted to view the associate records with more detail, again, just like any other tab, you would double click that record and open up the Contact Associate screen. So you'll see here the top portion of the screen is almost identical to the primary contact, and then there's just other various tabs highlighted here on the bottom for this associate record. If you wanted to view the associate records with more detail, again, just like any other tab, you would double click that record and open up the Contact Associate screen. So you'll see here the top portion of the screen is almost identical to the primary contact, and then there's just other various tabs highlighted here on the bottom for this associate record. On the left here is a view of all of my associates for Sidco Construction, and I can use the up or down arrow again to scroll through those various associates and see their records. If you wanted to add an associate, you can do that from here by clicking either the add icon, or if you wanted to copy or replicate most of this information, you can select this icon here, the copy icon, and then just change the name and perhaps phone number or anything different for that associate. Back to the contact screen. Just to highlight a few more of the tabs, the Notes tab is an unlimited text field where it allows you to create or keep additional notes for this contact. So here it looks like there's paragraphs of information. Maybe they cut and paste that from the website so that there's always information available about an overview of this company. You can also jot down different notes, for example, left voicemail, and then you can date and time stamp it, which would put the date, time, and then the username of the person who spoke to that contact. So this can track additional information, anything you want to, within the notes field. The Emails tab is going to highlight various emails that you have captured either from importing through Outlook via the Quick Add button, or that you have sent and then chose to save a record of through Results. Let's just jump over to Outlook real quick, and I'll show you how the Quick Add integration works and how you would import an email to this contact record. So here we are in Outlook, and you'll notice that when Results gets installed, there's a Results Quick Add icon or button up here in the main menu that also will get installed when you install Results on your machines. So to add an email to Results, you would simply highlight the email that you'd want to import and then select Results Quick Add, and that is going to note who the email is from and file it under the appropriate contact under that Emails tab. And when you do this, all the formatting and all of the attachments that are associated with the email would be sent over to Results as well. So you can do that for one email. Maybe at the end of the day you just have one email and you click Results Quick Add, or you could do it for a group of emails. So here I'm hitting Control Shift on the keyboard and I'm selecting 3 emails. It could be more than that, and you can select Results Quick Add to send all 3 of those emails over to Results at the same time. While we're in Outlook, I'll just highlight the other ways that Results Quick Add works. Results Quick Add also works with contacts and with calendar appointments. It works the same way as far as you would highlight the record you want to import and then click Results Quick Add. So just to show you real quick, On the calendar, I can highlight my basic training class today and then click Results Quick Add, and that would show up on my results calendar. Or I can come into Contacts and highlight one or several contacts at once and hit Results Quick Add to import those as contact records. Back to the contact screen in Results. There are a few other tabs to talk about here. One is the Documents and Links tab. Under Documents and Links, this is an area for you to use almost like an electronic filing cabinet to store links to any external documents, anything stored outside of Results that would have to do with this client or contact. So for example, if you have Excel spreadsheets, maybe PDF forms or graphs, if you have Word documents, sales proposals, meeting agendas, PowerPoints, any type of document at all that is stored outside of Results, this is a place for you to provide a link to that so that everyone has visibility on your team to the documents associated with this contact. So for example, here's a sales proposal, and when I select Open File, this is going to open the file associated with that. So here's just a sample proposal, just as an example that was linked to that account. So to add a document or link, you would select the Add button, and this opens up the document screen. Next, you would select a document type. So here's one of the lookup tables that I had mentioned before, where you can customize the values or the content that would show up here. So maybe you have special form numbers or special documents that you'd want to track. I'm going to just select something pretty generic here. I'll just say it's a letter, and then you'll be given a document date and a document owner that you can always change if necessary, and you'll need to type in a description. Once you've typed in that description, you can select the Browse button to navigate throughout your computer or network to find the document that you would want to link up. So once you select the document, then the link to that document is provided here, and you'd hit Save and close this, and then it becomes available under the Document and Links tab. The last tab that we'll talk about is the Groups tab. The Groups tab is a way for you to further categorize your contacts. So we've already taken our contacts and sorted them out by contact type. But if there's something that can provide a further distinction for your contact types, this is where you can use the Rapid Add to quickly add these contacts into various other groups that you might want to report on later. So for example, when I click Rapid Add, you'll see some different types of examples that we've come up with, keeping in mind that anything that you see here would be customized for your particular company. So for example, one of the ways people might categorize their contacts is by client type. And so when I click client type, you can have as many entries as you'd want under here. Here we just have 2, but they've decided to track here commercial and then residential clients. And so if you wanted to add this contact into your commercial client types, you can do that just by placing a check there. You could also maybe sort your contacts out by industry, and so here we have a number of different industries, and I can quickly add Steven Anderson into the construction industry. At Results, we track our QuickBooks users, so when there's a QuickBooks update, we can quickly identify who uses QuickBooks and who it would apply to and send out an email to them. So there's a number of different ways you could use this. Again, anything here can be customized. You can have as many entries as you want per contact. So once you've selected the groups that you want to add this contact to, you say Add Selected Groups, and it will give you a confirmation message saying that it's been added to the various 3 groups that you've selected. So I'm going to close out of this contact screen, and since we are talking about groups, I'll show you where you can perform searches for those groups. On the Standard Search tab, if you scroll to the bottom, there's the group field, and so when I click this icon here, or this ellipse button, you'll see a screen that's very similar. On this screen, I can search for all of my commercial clients, but I could also say show me all my commercial clients that also fall within the construction industry. Now when you're using this screen, you can further specify your search criteria down here using remarks and notes. You can set expiration dates for some of these types of groups when you set them up. You can also include or exclude matching contacts based on the type of search that you want to perform, but we'll keep it pretty simple here. We're just searching for everybody who's a commercial contact within the construction industry history. So I'll go ahead and click the select and exit button, and when I do that, you'll see that 2 of my 34 contacts that I had meet that criteria that I've entered. So Freddie Murphy and Steven Anderson are my only 2 contacts that fall within both of those groups. That's a summary of the contacts and the contacts module. Right now we'll move into calendar and activities. You'll notice in the Calendar and Activities tab that we have a Manage button here under Activities. This is going to open the Activities DMC. So this provides a list view of all of your activity records for your entire company. So you'll notice there's a number of records here. There's 124. And like the other DMC that we saw, you can quickly sort on any of the columns. So let's say you just wanted to see things that were assigned to Robert. As I start typing Robert's name, you'll notice that only Robert's activity records show up here and that he has 20 of them. You can also perform searches on the Standard Search tab and the Advanced Search tab, just as before. So you might want to think of this as Robert's to-do list that's showing here. You can also select his name here as well if we're going to use the Standard Search tab to perform our search. You can choose options like include pending activities only. So basically that's going to clear out any of the completed activities. Now when I click apply, you'll see that Robert only has 8 activities that he needs to complete. So another thing about the activities DMC is the total value here. So this is totaling Robert's to-do list. It's saying 5 hours of activities that he has scheduled. So you can use this DMC for a lot of different reasons, but since it is so dynamic and you can search on so many of the fields, it's a great tool for to-do lists and seeing activities in a list fashion if that's how you prefer to see your activities. One more thing to show you in this DMC is that you also have the ability to export to Excel or to PDF, just as in the Contacts DMC. Now we'll talk about the calendar. The calendar can be seen in a daily, weekly, monthly, or a timeline view. When I select the daily view, you'll notice that it's very similar to the way that Outlook is set up. You can select the time that you'd want to add an activity, and then you can just start typing for that activity. So if you want to see the activity record that was added behind the scenes here when I typed directly onto the calendar, I can double click on this entry and it would open up the activity details screen. So here's the activity screen of the activity I just added to my calendar. The first field you'll see is activity type, and you'll notice that this is a drop-down field. Again, you would be able to customize any of the values that you'll see here on this drop-down table. Right now it's set to meeting, which happens to be what I added to my calendar. Each user can select their own default activity type. They can always change it per activity, but since I'm signed in as Mary, Mary tends to add meetings mostly to her calendar, so that is the default activity type that she has selected. You'll also see the start and end date and time, which reflects what I had written on my calendar, and then the description here, which is the portion that showed up on my calendar, meeting with Joe. Since I am signed in as Mary, like I said, the activity is assigned to me, and then on the bottom portion of the screen we can link up this activity to various contacts or associate contacts within the system. So right now it just says meeting with Joe, but in order for this activity to show up on Joe's contacts record underneath the activities tab so everybody is aware of this activity, I'll need to look for Joe's record and then I'll need to link it up to Joe's record. So at this point I would select the binoculars or the search icon. Here's the search screen that allows me to search for various contact records. So in this case I'm searching for Joe, since that's who my meeting is with, and so I can search on the first name field here as I'll start to type J-O, and I'll just do a partial search. And then the contact records that meet that criteria show up here. So here's Joseph Jones. I will double click on that record, and you'll notice that once I've done that, the contact ID of Joseph Jones is listed here. Portions of his contact information are also listed here, and then this activity record will also show up on Joe's contact record as well. So on the activities tab, this meeting is going to show up so anybody reviewing that account can see what is going on with it. You can also link associates, documents, documents. Maybe there's a meeting agenda or a PowerPoint presentation, and then you can also link this to projects or sales opportunities, which we'll discuss later in the class. So I'm going to go ahead and click the save icon to save that. I'd like to point out a few other tabs here while we're on this screen. The Notes tab is similar to the Notes tab that we saw on the contact record. It's unlimited text field. You can add additional notes about the activity. We also have the Calendar tab that provides additional options for this activity. So for example, if you wanted to change the color of the activity of how it appears on your calendar, maybe you're doing all external meetings with clients in a certain color, so you can color coordinate your calendar that way. You can also set this to have an alarm show up similar to the alarms in Outlook, and so this is where you would set the alarm and select how many minutes before the activity starts that you want to be reminded of that. And then down here, this is where you can add or edit the recurring meetings or activities that you schedule. So if this is something that would happen every week, every month, every other Friday, that sort of thing, when you select this button here, the recurring appointment setup screen shows up, and this is where you can automatically generate those activity records. The last tab I'd like to point out is the Billable tab. The Billable tab is going to be used for those organizations that bill for their time. So if you're a services company and you're billing or invoicing your customers based on the activities, this tab would be important for you. Note that when you set up your activity types, whoever sets those up can designate activity types as either billable or non-billable. So in this case, we have a meeting, and you'll notice that the billable is not checked because in most cases a meeting is non-billable. But if the activity type was consultant work, maybe with some bookkeeping, HVAC repair, something where your users would be billing for their time spent with a client, then you can set those activity types up as billable. When you do that, you would select a bill to account, and all this information would be filled out for you based on the activity type you have set up. When the users go and complete the activities on their calendar, so in this case, let's say this said consulting work, and they completed that consulting work, it would prompt for the person doing invoicing in the mass invoicing module to automatically create an invoice for that billable time. So again, this is for service-oriented companies. If you're a products-only company, you wouldn't necessarily use this tab, but it is good to know that that functionality is there, that we can create invoices automatically based on completed activities. So when I hit the Save button, you'll notice that these two buttons on the right here become available: Notify Assigned and Send to Outlook. Send to Outlook is one of our Outlook integration options. So when I select this button, a meeting would appear within my Outlook calendar. This is an appointment record, and I can hit the Save and Close icon to save this to my Outlook calendar. One more thing to note on this screen is the Assign To field. In this field, you can select other users in the system to assign this activity to. So in this case, assign to Mary, but if Mary's unable to attend this activity or attend this meeting, she can select somebody else. So here I've selected George. And then when I hit save, it will ask you if you would like to notify George that you've updated an activity for him. If you do select yes, an email that's pre-addressed to that user would be sent through your Outlook, and this case it says Mary Harris has an updated results activity for you, and then the email provides details of that activity. So then George would know to go back into results and take a look at his calendar. You can also get the same results by selecting the Notify Assigned button, and that would prompt for an Outlook email as well. So now that I've notified George of this activity, when we close out of the activities screen, you'll notice it's not on Mary's calendar anymore. Over here on the left hand side, this is a list of all my users, and I can select as many as I'd want to view the calendar at the same time. I can also select George's calendar and see that that activity has been moved from Mary's calendar to George's calendar instead. These checkboxes here are helpful in scheduling something. If you're trying to schedule a meeting between multiple users, you can select many calendars to view at once to compare everybody's days. Again, and this works in the daily, the weekly, and the monthly views as well. So that provides a summary of the calendar and activities module, and now we'll move on to sales and marketing. Under sales and marketing, first we're going to talk about sales opportunities, then we'll create a quote. So under the sales opportunities, we'll start with the sales opportunity DMC. I clicked the sales opportunity manage button to access the DMC. And here we have the sales opportunity DMC. You'll notice it looks similar to the activities DMC and the contacts DMC that we saw before. One thing to point out is that this DMC has a graph button. Once you've performed your sales opportunity DMC search, you can select the records that you'd like to graph. So in this case, I'll just select all of the records. It's placed a check mark next to all of them, and I can select the graph icon. Next, you can choose the type of graph you'd want. So here I'll choose to display the dollar amount of sales opportunity per sales rep. And you can also select from bar, line, or pie graph. So I'll select a bar. You can change the titles of the various axes and the graphs, and then select OK. When you do that, Excel will open up, and then you can select the various display options that are available in Excel. For example, changing the colors or any other feature that you'd like to use. So I'll go ahead and close out of Excel, and now we're back into the results sales opportunity DMC. At this point, we'll open a sales opportunity that already exists and take a look at that screen and the details that you can save on that screen. So right now I'm opening a sales opportunity that looks like it's for a customer service web portal, and the first field that you would engage is the type of sales opportunity. Again, when you select the drop down here, remember that all the values can be customized for your organization, but in this case the organization is tracking alliance, new accounts, and then upsell opportunities for current accounts. So this would be an upsell opportunity. You could select the status of your sales opportunity and also the stage. Again, these drop downs can be customized. Next, you would fill out a description for your sales opportunity. It looks like the customer or potential customer is looking for someone to design a custom e-commerce site. And you can provide a lot more detail. As you can see, there's a lot more room for text in this field. Next, you would link this contact or this sales opportunity up to a contact. So again, we'll see the binoculars or search icon that we saw previously on the activities screen. You would search for your contact and link him. So this has already been linked. You'll see the contact ID here, and then in italics on the right hand side we see Ron Peterson is attached or is connected, linked to this sales opportunity. So Ronald Peterson is our prospect or customer in this case. Once you select a contact, the source, the assigned to, and the sales rep would default over or be pre-filled out based on what you have already filled out on the contact screen. On the bottom portion of the screen have several tabs that we could talk about here. The opportunity details tab is where you're going to be collecting most of the information pertaining to the sales opportunity. So you can more information here like other products that they're interested in, their buying criteria, notes about the decision process, who is the decision maker or makers in this case, notes about the competition, red flags, and even the next steps. You can, on the right hand side, store information about the dates of flows or created for the sales opportunity, and then provide details about the opportunity amount and even the cost if you'd like to do that. Also notice we have a quotes tab. So again, as we've seen with the other tabs, I could be able to double click this quote here, see the details of it. This would list all the quotes associated with the sales opportunity. In this case, we only have one quote associated with the sales opportunity. It wouldn't be unusual to have several quotes under this tab, maybe one with a special promotion, maybe with products and services, maybe one with just products, etc. The document links tab is similar to the other document and links tab that we've seen throughout the training. We can attach any type of document, provide any type of link to a document here. So here it looks like they've attached a PowerPoint presentation that maybe they've used for the sales opportunity. Then also the notes tab as well. Under activities, this is a great place to look and see when this account was last followed up on, see what kind of follow-up has happened. It looks like they've had an initial meeting and sent a proposal, and this is a great place to keep track of how much effort is going into closing this sales opportunity. Service orders tab would track any service orders associated with this sales opportunity. So for example, if you have to have a technician go out and prepare an estimate, that might be something that you would see underneath the service orders tab. And then the activity links tab is going to provide you with a miniature phone book for this sales opportunity. It's going to take any contacts that would be linked to your activities and linked to your service orders and display them here. So in this case we just have one, Ron Peterson, who happens to be our main contact or our main customer for this sales opportunity. In the case that you're scheduling activities with maybe partners or resellers, other vendors, etc., close this sales opportunity or to work on the sales opportunity, their names and phone numbers, addresses would all be listed here so that you could have quick and easy access to those records. And then if you wanted to view more details about that contact record, you could click that to open it. So that's a brief overview of the sales opportunity screen and the information that it can track. Now we're going to close this screen and look at the quotes. Under the sales and marketing module, I have in my quotes section here, my quotes group, I have the options to either manage my quotes, which would open my DMC, or add a quote. So I'll select to add a quote. This is the quote screen. The first thing that you would do on this screen is identify the contact for this quote. So here I can search for existing contacts, or you would be able to add a brand new contact record by selecting this icon. So in this case, I'll go ahead and search for an existing contact. I'm going to search by last name, everybody who starts with an S, and then I'm going to select John Sample. So when I select John Sample, you'll see portions of his contact record are added here, and then on the bill to and ship to sections we have his address that would display on the quote. If you have stored an associate record of a different ship to or bill to address, you can select the appropriate button and search for that record and link it up or change the bill to or ship to address here. So once you've selected that contact, you would hit save, and you'll notice when you do that you would be given a quote number, and some of these fields would be filled out for you. So for example, the terms and the sales rep are going to come over from whichever contact you've selected. So on John Sample's contact record, these are his terms, and this is his sales rep that has been identified. You can change that for this quote only, but this does default over for you. The next thing you would be able to do is provide a purchase order number if you wanted to do that, change any of the tax rates, and you can also link this up to an existing sales opportunity. So if you want this quote to show up under the quotes tab of an existing sales opportunity, you can search for that sales opportunity here. On the bottom portion of the screen, this is where you're going to be adding the line items to your quotes, and you can do that one of two ways. You can either use the rapid add or what we'll call the traditional add button. So if you wanted to add a line item to this quote, you would select the rapid add button, and then this screen is going to list all of your product lines. And if you have integrated with QuickBooks already, these product lines would be identical to what you have set up in QuickBooks. If not, this is going to reflect anything that you've already set up within Results. So here are my various product lines, and I can expand these product lines to see the products underneath of them. So in this case, if you wanted to sell John Sample 3 of this printer, I can change that quantity here, and maybe you've sold him some training as well. And so when I scroll down here, I can select 10 hours of Microsoft Office products training, and then say add selected products. You'll notice the two records have been added, the training and the printers. And when you go back to this tab, you'll notice those two quote line items here. You'll notice the quantity and then also the price. So in this case, we're relying on the default product description and also the list price for these items. At this point, you could be done, and you would either print or email the quote by selecting print this quote. But let's take a look at what was created behind the scenes here. So I'm going to double click on the printer product, and when I do that, the quote line item screen shows up. So on this quote line item screen, you're going to see the description of the product here, and again, that's going to reflect anything that you've either set up in Results, or if you've integrated with QuickBooks, that is set up in QuickBooks. When you access this screen, it provides you an opportunity to customize the description for this quote only. So in this case, let's say that you've had to come up with a special deal to sell these printers to your client, then you could say something like, with 3 additional toner cartridges, and that way that description would be saved for this quote only. This screen also allows you to adjust the price if necessary. So here I can give this customer a further discount or raise the price if necessary. When you hit save, you'll notice I can use the up or down arrow to scroll throughout the products that I've added. So here's the training Microsoft Office products. So this is a more simple description, but you could add details here. And then you can also add additional products by selecting the add button at the top of the screen. And this would give you a way to add products directly from this screen. So when you do this, this is going to show you all of your various product lines and again the various products underneath of them. So now that we're back on the quote screen, you would probably either want to print or email the quote at this point, in which case you would select the print this quote button. On this screen, you would be able to print your quote if you wanted a paper copy of it, or if you wanted to directly email your client, you can do so by clicking the email by PDF button. And when you select the email by PDF button, you'll notice that an email would open up in Outlook. It would be pre-addressed to your prospect or client, and then your quote would be attached as a PDF. Now you can customize the subject and the body of your email here in the configuration options. That's something we discussed in the advanced training class. But just to show you what our quote form looks like, when I double click that attachment or the PDF, I can open this form up and take a look at what was created here. So this is a simple quote form. You'll notice the bill to and ship to addresses at the top, the terms of the quote in the middle, and then the quote line items that we had added here, the adjusted prices, and even the adjusted product description. This would be the same thing that would print had you selected the print button. We'll go ahead and close out of this and return to results. And so when we're back in results, I'll close out of this and we'll take a look at that quote screen again. So at this point, let's say you've emailed the quote to your customer and the customer would like to move forward with their order. You can either convert this quote into a sales order or you could convert it into an invoice. So depending on your organizational structure, the processes you have in place, some of you would directly convert from quote into invoice, in which case you would select this button here. Other of you have that interim step where you're going to be going into the sales order first and then convert the sales order into an invoice. So in the case that you'd like to create a sales order first, you would select the sales order button. So whether you've created an invoice or a sales order here, it's going to give you a confirmation question. So it's going to ask you, are you sure you would like to convert this quote? And I would say yes. And then it's going to give you a sales order number in this case, or had you selected convert to invoice, it would give you an invoice number. So at this point it says sales order number 13 has been added. And when I select OK, I'll notice that there's a audit trail left here. So this says converted to sales order number 13 on this particular day by this user. So now that the sales order has been created, we can close out of this quote and go look for sales order number 13 and take a look at that. Back on the Sales and Marketing tab, I'm going to enter into the Sales Order DMC by selecting the Manage icon within the Sales Orders group. And this is my Sales Order DMC. Just a few things to note about this DMC. You can sort by open or close sales orders. So if you want to see the backlog of items that you need to deliver, you could sort by open yes. So I'll type a Y here. And this would basically be everything that is still outstanding that you would need to deliver. And you'll notice in this column, the order total column, this is going to provide a summary or a sum of all of the items. So you basically have 26,000 in your backlog of items you need to deliver. To open up the record, you would double click on the record just like any of the other DMCs. And this is the sales order screen. You'll notice it's very similar to the quote screen, but it does allow you to track a few additional things. So for example, here we have tracking number, you also have a class field, and then you'll notice the additional tabs on the bottom. Here we have linked invoices for when this gets converted into an invoice, and the linked invoice details. Our sales orders are going to integrate with QuickBooks as well. So for those of you that have purchased the QuickBooks integration module, our sales orders are going to integrate bidirectionally with QuickBooks, so it does not matter whether you're creating your sales orders in QuickBooks or in Results, they would show up in both places. So at this point, let's say that you were able to deliver 5 hours of the training and that this person has agreed to partial invoicing. So you would want to click the Convert to Invoice button, and it's going to ask you, would you like to create a partial invoice for this? And I'll say yes, since we've only delivered 5 of the 10 hours of training. On this screen, it's going to prompt you for what it would like to invoice for. Let's say the printers have not come in yet, so I'll change the 3 to 0, and we've only delivered 5 of the 10 hours, so I'm changing the 10 to a 5. And then I will say add selected products. At this point, you'll be given an invoice ID. So our invoice ID is 5058, and I'm selecting OK. So when you close out of this sales order and return back to your sales order DMC, you'll notice here that if I scroll to the right, there's an amount invoice. So you'll see that our order total was $7,700, but only $600 of that for our 5 hours of training has been invoiced. You'll notice that this is still considered an open invoice as well. When you are ready to deliver the remaining 5 hours of training, or when the printers come in and you're able to deliver those, you'd want to create another invoice from this sales order. At that point, you can open the record just as I showed you and select the Convert to Invoice button, or you can highlight that record and say Create Invoice directly from this DMC. So it's going to ask you if you would want to create a partial invoice. I'm going to say yes, even though we'll create the full invoice. But just to show you, now it's only prompting for 5 hours of the 10 hours because we've already delivered the initial 5, and then it's still prompting for the 3 printers. So when I add those, we'll also get another invoice ID, 5059. And so at this point, we have this DMC filtered for only open sales orders. It's disappeared. As soon as I clear this, you'll see that our sales order number here is still available. It's not open anymore since we've invoiced for all of the items. And then you'll see the amount invoiced here matches the order total. And then at this point, we can open up the Invoices DMC if you'd like to take a look at the 2 invoices that were created. Now I'm going to open up the Finances tab and look for invoices through the Invoices DMC by selecting the Manage icon. On the top here, you'll see my 2 most recent invoices that were created, 5059 and 5058. Those were both created from that one sales order. I'm going to open up one to show you what the invoice screen looks like. Again, it's going to be very similar to both the quote screen and the sales order screen with just a few more options. For example, we also have the Payments tab where you can apply payment directly to this invoice. We have Activities tab, so where you can note your follow-up activities for payment of this invoice. Again, our invoices are going to integrate bidirectionally with QuickBooks, so it does not matter if you are creating your invoices in Results or within QuickBooks, it would show up in both places. Once you are okay with everything that is displayed here, you can select Print this invoice, and again, you're going to have the option to actually print it on paper or to email it as a PDF to your customer. You'll notice that there's a number of different forms here available for printing invoices. Even at the bottom, we have a packing slip option if you're using those for your invoices. But I'll just show you one example of the way that this looks. I'm highlighting the first one and selecting Open Preview. And on this form, you'll notice that the invoices looks very similar to our quotes form. It does say invoice on top, and then we are also tracking additional columns here, things like the quantity ordered versus the quantity shipped and the balance due. So that provides a summary of how the invoice works, or the process of creating a quote to a sales order and then a sales order to an invoice. If you wanted to create an invoice directly, you can always do so by coming into the Invoice DMC and selecting the Add button, which would open a brand new invoice for you, and you would be able to create an invoice directly from this screen here. This concludes the information that we were going to discuss today. Just as a review, we've talked about product navigation, the data management centers. We went over the contact screen in detail and also the calendar and activities. We discussed the sales opportunities and also quotes, sales orders, and invoices. If you have further questions, I would encourage you to email the support at results-software.com, and that would go to our support team that would be able to answer any type of questions, whether it's how-to, a technical question, or maybe even a best practices type of question. Thank you for your time today, and good luck with results.